Hello. Hi. Welcome to the mid-year Book Freakout Tag. I have never done this tag before, and actually, for some reason, I feel like this year almost everyone's doing it, and that's how I remembered that this is a thing that exists. I don't actually know who the original creator of this is. I got my questions from Emmy's video, and yep. So let's get right into this. So the mid-year book freakout tag is a tag that people in the booktube community do every year in June or at the end of June or the beginning of July. So when it's been 6 months in the year, we're all just taking stock of our reading, I guess. And there are 13 questions in this tag, and let's just get started. So the first question is, which is the best book of 2025 that I've read so far? So I can't actually find my copy, but I would say that the best book I've read so far is Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. I'm just gonna put a picture somewhere, and it's a memoir about her experiences, about her life, like growing up and how she viewed love and um, being with her friends, high school, college, and jobs and all of that, and the various relationships that she's been in, the friendships she's had, everything that happened, the push and pull of friendships as they, you know, as people have sometimes less time and sometimes more time to devote to you as a friend, where you stand, how you sometimes get closer than ever and sometimes you're so far apart you can't even remember a time when you were friends. It was a wonderful book. I know that the title makes it sound like it's gonna be a book about romantic love, and that is something that this book does touch upon, that when we think about love and relationships, we implicitly start thinking about romantic love and romantic relationships. But this book highlights female friendships, and it was just a wonderful read. And I've mentioned this before, this book came to me at a time in my life where I severely needed to read it. So it's just a wonderful, amazing book. I really enjoyed it. I haven't stopped recommending it to every single friend of mine. So yeah, that's my favorite book of the year. That's the best book that I've read in 2025. The second question is, what is the best sequel that I've read in 2025? Now, I'm kind of cheating a little bit. This is not technically a sequel, it's a prequel. But if you think about it, it is a sequel to The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. So, the best sequel that I've read this year is The Sunrise on the Reaping. I mean, this book, this book, this book. Sorry, I started thinking about gumdrops there for a second. Anyway, so when you've been set up to lose everything you love, what is there left to fight for? This book is called Sunrise on the Reaping. If, in case you don't know, this is a prequel to The Hunger Games. So, The Hunger Games is about this. It follows like this one teenager, Katniss, who gets chosen to participate in the Hunger Games, or like she volunteers. The Hunger Games itself is a once in a year event in this post apocalyptic dystopian society where there's one capital and there are 12 districts, and every year one boy and one girl from the ages of 12 to 18 are chosen to fight in the Hunger Games. And it is a fight to the death, and whomever like remains the last child standing is the victor. And then they get glory and enough money and a house and all of that stuff. But it's also a story about the other 11 kids dying, right? So this is a prequel to the Hunger Games. So in the original Hunger Games trilogy, we follow Katniss and the other tribute from her district is Peeta, and both of them are mentored by this guy named Haymitch, who is a grumpy old alcoholic who has basically given up on life. All he does is drink. He doesn't talk to people. He doesn't do anything. And when we see him, he's like kind of like a pathetic little guy. Not a little guy. He's old, but he's you just feel sad for him. And then when you read this book, you kind of know what has happened in his games. It is discussed in the second book. You kind of know what kind of person he is. But when you read this book, this is a prequel. This talks about everything that happened in his games. It touches upon, like, we all know Suzanne Collin writes when she has something to say, and I know that this touches upon a lot of themes. It talks about propaganda and all of that. And my favorite theme in this book is that one paragraph about why AI is bad. So there's that. And I think I've already talked a lot about this book. Um, but yeah, in case you don't know, I tried to do a reading vlog with this book, but I tried to make it spoiler free, which, as I found out, is just not possible to do if you're doing a dedicated vlog. And also, I just somehow ended up with footage of like 30 minutes of me just sobbing, just straight up sobbing. And if you've seen that video, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, this is a really great book. And this was the best sequel that I read in 2025. What is a 2025 new release that I liked? Okay. So this is kind of technically cheating because I think it was published in 2024 towards the end. But yeah, this is a new release that I really, really liked, which is Percy Jackson and the Wrath of the Triple Goddess. If you have somehow been watching my videos recently, you know that I've been talking about this book a lot. I just embossed it. I'm really glad that I read this. I'm really glad that I bought this. And yeah, this is the best 2025 new release ish that I read this year. Okay, so the next question is, what is an anticipated 2025 release that I have for the rest of the year? And I have two answers to that question. So the first book is one that I don't actually own. It's called Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. It just came out, I think, a couple of weeks or so ago. And I really want to get it and I really want to read it, and then I really want to add it to my Schwab shelf, which, okay, so I used to have actually a dedicated bookshelf to V Schwab books, and I currently don't, but kind of also do. So I have Vicious and Vengeful, which are two books by her, which are on display over there. But then I have A Darker Shade of Magic, The Near Witch, Gallant, um, the latest ADSOM book, Addie LaRue, and all of those books are together on my shelf, and they are in this section right here, but they're also like behind the books that you can currently see, because I have a lot of books and I have to stack them to at once. Otherwise, they simply won't fit in these shelves. So, yep, I wanna read Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil, and so that is one of the 2025 new releases that I am most excited for. And then another anticipated new release is, okay, so I found out about this book on Instagram randomly, and then a couple of days later I saw that there was a book launch event happening in my own city, which is very rare. And I was lucky enough to go to the book signing event, talk to the author, and get my copy signed. And I've done a vlog on this as well. And that book is Swimming Lessons, and I've got it right here. Eee! So this book, I have talked about this a lot. Reality is a luxury. The truth is never linear. Michelle Tan's older sister Meredith lies in a hospital ward, barely breathing. Sorrow-stricken, the younger girl dives headfirst into her memories of them together. But this only accounts for Michelle's worldly worries. She also thinks she's being followed. Clumsily, she navigates the arduous process of growing up and coming to terms with who she truly is, while a spectral enigma looms. Young Constable Michael Chakrabarti experiences strange happenings during his night shifts. Mysterious recurring phone calls from an exasperated girl, a ferocious, shadowy lion of mythological origin. There doesn't seem to be an end to the peculiarity that haunts him. Demystifying the unknown has consequences. Captain Ishan heads the newly inaugurated Department for Supernatural Oddities, shouldering the burden of being at the forefront of a revolution in science that could potentially decipher the supernatural, Ishan soon realizes that he might be too close to the puzzle for his own good. Can he truly exorcise the demons of his past? Swimming Lessons is a unique coming of age tale of identity, sisterly love, queerness, and the supernatural set in modern metropolitan Singapore. And I'm really excited to read this. I've already talked a lot about what the author talked about, what this is about, and I just read you guys the blurb. But it is like some of the things that I really, really am excited for is that this is a non-linear story, and also that it also has supernatural elements. And this is on my July TBR, so I'm hoping that I'm gonna read this in the next few weeks. So this is another 2025 anticipated new release. The next question: the biggest disappointment of 2025. Guys, I waited almost 2 years to read this book. I think it might even be over 2 years. Okay, yeah, so I waited like 2 years to read this book. This is Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Millers, and I really, really adore the vibes of this book. It looks like something that I would actually really, really enjoy. And yes, I judge books by their covers sometimes, but also by their blurbs. So just hear me out. New York is slipping from Cleo's grasp. Sure, she's at a different party every other night, but she barely knows anyone. Then she meets Frank. 20 years older, Frank's life is full of all the success and excess that Cleo's lacks. He offers her the chance to be happy and the opportunity to apply for a green card. She offers him a life imbued with beauty and art, and hopefully a reason to cut back on his drinking. They are everything each other needs right now. Cleo and Frank run headfirst into a romance that neither of them can quite keep up with, that reshapes their lives and the lives of those around them. Whether that's Cleo's best friend struggling to embrace his gender identity in the wake of her marriage, or Frank's financially dependent sister arranging sugar daddy dates after being cut off. Cleopatra and Frankenstein is an astounding and painfully relatable debut novel about the spontaneous decisions that shape our entire lives and those imperfect relationships born of unexpectedly perfect evenings. It sounds really cool, right? It sounds like it'll be really engaging. It sounds like it's gonna be an exploration of the people and the things that they do and why they do those. And it does try to be, but to me, it just felt like a book about people drinking and doing drugs in different settings on every single page. And there was also like a bit of animal cruelty that was just brushed off by like both the characters and the narrative. And I couldn't move past that. Like, I really wanted to enjoy this book. I really wanted to be like, oh, hey, this is a grown up book that I read about like experiences of people that are really, 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 really different from my own in a city, in a different country with, degrees that aren't mine, areas that aren't mine, experiences that are mine, that aren't mine, like I said. But it promised me everything and then just gave me drugs and drinking nonstop. I just couldn't. I didn't enjoy this book at all. So I was really looking forward to this. Like, I read this book in February and I was putting together like a whole TBR of books about love and romance, and I thought that this would be a complicated romance. But it wasn't. It was just a bad one. It was just two terrible people who are all friends with terrible people, a bunch of people who cheat on people, a bunch of people who just take drugs, a bunch of toxic people, and none of them like really recognize that or do anything to change that. I mean, if you're like, there is some self-awareness, but not really. I don't know. I just didn't enjoy this. I know a lot of people really like books about characters that are really like messy, but I did not enjoy this at all. This was my biggest disappointment of 2025. The next question is, which book was my biggest surprise for this year? And I've got a good one, okay? This is Girl Goddess Queen by P. Fitzgerald, and this is a Hades and Persephone retelling. This is like what I actually would call a feminist retelling. This is a wonderful book. Like, we all know Hades and Persephone, and they have been romanticized a lot. The story has been retold a lot of times, but the way that it was marketed made it sound like it was supposed to be a really great book, but it might not be. Like everyone called it, everyone said that Persephone is a badass and Hades just is there, and that there's a modern twist. And every time someone describes a Greek mythology retelling as a feminist retelling, I have to take it with a grain of salt, because every time I think of this, I think of, there was this one time when I was interning at a company, and there was this guy with me who, we were discussing if we could like go watch movies or something, and then that guy and I started talking about movies and superhero movies, and he said that he had recently seen Birds of Prey, which was a movie that I'd pitched to the group, but other people were not interested. So he said that he'd seen Birds of Prey, the DC movie with Harley Quinn and a bunch of other female characters in it, and he said that it was such a feminist movie and I would really really enjoy it, so I should definitely go and watch it. And then like months later, when it finally came on streaming platforms, I watched Birds of Prey. It was just a movie about girls. It was just a movie that had female main characters. It was not a feminist movie, it was just a movie with girls. So every time someone describes a book or something as a feminist retelling, a feminist story, I'm like, hold on, is it? I mean, is it? Are you sure? Like, do you know what that word means? What's that one line from The Princess Bride? You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means. Right? So, anyway, but this actually turned out to be good. I thought it might, and I did not know at the time that this was a young adult book. So, when I got it because someone really hyped it up, and at the moment I was really interested, but it did take me a few months to read this, right? So when I finally read it, I was not sure if it was a young adult or an adult book, and I was really, really worried that it would have a lot of spice, and that's not something that I typically enjoy in my books. And it doesn't have any spice. It's a young adult book, and I really liked it. And it's not just a book with story, like the romance is not central to this. The Persephone finding her identity is what is central. Persephone's relationship with Hades is just one part. Persephone making friends with other people in the underworld is another part. Persephone fixing her relationship, or like dealing with her relationship with her mother, is another equally important part. And then Persephone finding her identity, her name, her everything, her power, that is also a huge part of this book. And I like that this was a well-rounded book with fleshed out characters, and not just, no offense, but not just smart. So yeah, this was my biggest surprise of this year, and I really loved this book. And again, this is another book that I haven't stopped recommending to people. The next prompt is favorite new author of 2025. So I don't know how to quantify a favorite author, but yeah, there's this one author that I just kind of was talking about, whose books I will be reading in the future, looking out for, and that is the author of Girl Goddess Queen B. Fitzgerald. I have already bought the second, like, it's not a sequel per se, but it's another book in the same like Greek mythology retelling universe by her, which is The End Crowns All. And I've already got it, and I'm already 100 pages into that book. And while I did get it because of a confusion, I'm really glad that I have it and that I'm reading it. It's a retelling of the Trojan War, but with a sapphic romance and told through the perspectives of Cassandra and Helen. So far I am enjoying that book as well, and I'm really really like looking forward to reading more books by this author, because I have enjoyed whatever I've read so far. So the next question is, who is my new fictional crush? I don't know. In the past few years I've kind of stopped having fictional crushes, if that makes sense. But if I were to still name somebody, it would definitely be Hades from Girl Goddess Queen, because I don't know if it's like a crush or if it's like a, you're just like me and I wish I was a little bit more like you. I mean, the only reason that, this is mildly spoilery, okay? But the only reason that he is a ruler is so that he can ask everyone or command everyone to leave him in peace, and then he can just do his little hobbies. He's just a hobby guy. He's just a cozy hobby guy, and Who doesn't like that? Like, I don't know if it's, like I said, I don't know if it's because he's like me, or because if I actually do have a crush on him, but yeah, that's the crushiest or the closest that I've come to having a crush in this year. So I would just have to say Hades from Girl Goddess Queen. The next question is, who is my favorite fictional character that I've read this year? I know it. You know it. Let's say it together. Macely Donner from Sunrise on the Reaping. There's this one scene in spoiler. There is this one scene in Sunrise on the Reaping. So when the kids are reaped, and like, you don't know. I'm assuming that you don't know. So if you've read The Sunrise of the Reaping, then you know. But when the tributes are reaped, they are transported by train to the capital where the Hunger Games are going to be held. And our four District 12 tributes, when they are being transported by train to the capital, there's this one scene where the caretaker or the handler or whatever the title is, the person who does that, who's like responsible from picking the tributes and taking them to the capital, she says something. She slaps Macely Donner, and Macely Donner, without skipping a beat, slaps her right back. I love her. She's fierce, she is vocal, she is like, she's terrified, but she doesn't let any of that show, and she's not gonna go down without a fight. And I love that about her. She's got the spirit, and also I think she's just really, really cool. So, Macely Donner from The Hunger Games. Sunrise on the Reaping. A book that made me cry this year. I'm really tempted to say Sunrise on the Reaping, but actually, okay, so I read the Sunrise on the Reaping, I cried the entire night. The next day, I was reading more days at the Murasaki bookshop to calm down, because this is like a kind of cozy book. And I thought that, okay, this is gonna be relaxing. Let me read a bit before bed. And then I read it. And then for the second night in a row, I was sobbing until 4 a.m. Like, with this book, I was definitely sobbing until 4 a.m. And to calm myself down, I was at 4 a.m. making a Pinterest board. And then I've got a friend who's currently in Australia, and she'd woken up and she was like, "Why are you not asleep yet?" And like, she literally had to scold me and make me go to bed. So yeah, More Days at the Murasaki bookshop is a book that made me cry, like properly sob this year. The next prompt is for a book that made me happy this year, and I have two books. Okay, so picture this: you're me, you have just had an unexpected injury, you are just going through it, and then you pick up this book, and A British Girl's Guide to Hurricanes and Heartbreak is the sequel to A Cuban Girl's Guide to Tea and Tomorrow, which is the most heartwarming, cozy book that I've ever read. And it's a book that I really love. And it's another one of those books that I read at the perfect time and is therefore like forever etched into my memory. And this is a sequel to that book. This follows Flora, who is one of the background characters in the first book, and it like follows her exploring finding herself, basically exploring her options and figuring out this life stuff after something really, really tragic happens to her, kind of similar to the first book but not exactly. And in this book, there's this character, like Flora, the main character, and she's rebuilding after everything has just, it feels like everything has been lost. And that was so comforting to read at a time where I had this like big ass injury, and I couldn't get off the bed, I couldn't walk, I couldn't do anything. So this is a book that made me really, really like it gave me a lot of comfort and kind of happiness. And there's another book in the same category that I think I read right after, which is Funny Story by Emily Henry. And in this one, it's got this one chick who's engaged to be married to this guy, and while like she has moved in with him, she doesn't have a place, she doesn't have a friend circle because she moved cities to be with him, and she's in his hometown. and her entire life is mixed into his life, right? And then he goes on the bachelor's party and hooks up with his childhood best friend and comes back and he's like, hey, move out, this is over, I love her. So this is a story about this girl who also, like, her entire life comes crashing down because it was built with him. I wouldn't say it was built around him, but it was built with him, right? So there are certain things that you don't always plan for a backup when you're building a life with somebody, right? And yeah, so this is another book where everything comes crashing down and then the character starts from scratch. And like, funny story, it's the title is funny story, but it's also just generally also funny. Like, the funny story title comes from this being like, oh, how did you guys meet? Oh, it's a funny story actually. So that's where the title comes from, but it is also funny. So these are two books that really, really gave me a lot of happiness this year. So these are my answer to this particular prompt. The second last question, or the second last prompt on this list, is what is the most beautiful book that I bought this year? So I've got it right here. There's a little story time attached to this. More than 2 years ago, I ordered a copy of Circe, which was, I believe it was the 10-year anniversary edition of Circe, and I placed an order. And since then, that bookstore has been on Shark Tank, kind of started giving refunds for all the books that they were supposed to deliver, but they never did, vanished, and are just now, there's no trace of them. They were on socials, but now they're not. I don't know what they've done. Have they deleted their accounts? Have they deleted every single thing? What is going on? I don't know. And the only reason I've never announced their name is because they kind of block everyone who does that. And when they still had their socials, they used to post like updates about, hey, this book has come in, so we're gonna ship it. So up to a certain point, they were still shipping the books, and I still wanted to get those updates, so I wasn't announcing ki, hey, these guys suck. But if you have been on Indian Bookstagram in the past few years, you probably know what I'm talking about. So anyway, so I placed an order for Circe for the 10-year anniversary edition, which matches. I already have the Song of Achilles, which was also from that bookstore, before I knew what they were like. So they never sent it until earlier this year, 2 years later, when I had already accepted that I've been scammed. So I was at the World Book Fair and I thought, hey, I'm never gonna get that book. I still have multiple orders open with them. I don't think I'm gonna get those books. It is simply foolish of me to expect anything at this point from them. So I'm just gonna write them off as people who took my money and ran away. So anyway, so when I was at the book fair, I saw the 10-year anniversary edition and I saw this edition and I wanted to get both. This is so much prettier. Just look at it. This edition with the flowers on the back, and these are the end pages, the map of Aiea. I think this was just mentioned in Percy Jackson and the Wrath of the Triple Goddess, and I'm pretty sure there was a pronunciation, but I didn't pay attention to the to the pronunciation, and I just kept on going yeah for funsies. This is what happens. Sometimes you actually end up having to speak. Anyway, I think this is a map of Aiea, and look at this. This is so intricate. It's so gorgeous. I am obsessed with this naked hardback. It's only on the front, but yeah. So this is the most beautiful book that I've bought this year. So the final question is, what is my TBR for the rest of the year, and any and all of these books? But if I'm gonna be specific, there are certain books that I really want to read this year, no matter what. The first book on that list would be Vicious and Vengeful by V.E. Schwab, which are right there. Then I would like to read Immortal Longings and Vilest Things by Chloe Gong. I would also like to read Swimming Lessons That I Got, which is right here. That's what, 5 books. I want to read Heart Lamp by Banu Mushtaq, which is it is a Kannada language book that was translated and it just won the Booker Prize. So I really, really want to read that. Then I got a copy of Our Hideous Progeny this year, which is something that I've been wanting to read for a long time. So I want to read that this year definitely for spooky season. And I want to read Swimming Lessons, like I just said, because I just got it and I want to read it. There are also like a couple of books that I don't own that I really want to read. Two of them are the sequels to Little Thieves, Painted Devils, and Holy Terrors, and also The Fallow Year, which is all the short stories that Margaret Owens released um, between the release of the second and third book. So, if I could somehow get my hands on those books, I would love to read those. And Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil, obviously. What else? And if we're talking about nonfiction, there are a couple of books that I would like to get through. I know I tried to start a few nonfiction books in June, but we didn't really have much progress with that. So I want to read The Artist's Way. I want to read User Friendly and Design as Art. And maybe I want to read Atomic Habits. I keep saying that and not reading it, but yeah, I do want to read that as well. So that would be my TBR for the rest of the year. I don't know how much of it I'm gonna get to, but we do have 5.5 months at this point. So I am hopeful. And yep, let's go. So this has been me trying to do the mid-year book freakout tag. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you found some books that you might want to read or maybe avoid, not talking about any book in particular. I don't know if it's in the frame. Uh, and if you've read any of these books, let me know in the comments. If you think that you know some books that I would really enjoy based on what I've told you that I've enjoyed reading and read so far, you could let me know of that too. And thank you for watching. As usual, maybe consider subscribing. And once again, shout out to the haters. If you did not like this video and have stuck around so far, I don't know what to tell you. Why are you here? I love you. Okay, that is it. That has been my mid-year book freakout tag, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.